new top 10 quarterback rankings for the 2026 NFL Draft. We're going to discuss QBs of the week, rising performances, and stock droppers coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, we brought it back, our weekly top 10 quarterback rankings. We update this every single week throughout the college football season and NFL draft season. So buckle up, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun here. Go get into our QB of the week. Which QB impressed us the most? Rising performances, some guys that may not have been on the list, that put themselves on the list, and then some stock droppers. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the app. Keith, when you think about week one, and I think I tweeted this out, I'm not overreacting too much to a lot of stuff because the defenses in football early in the season are typically ahead of opposing offenses. That's in the NFL. That's in college football. We saw that a lot. We saw some quarterbacks struggle when they had good matchups. We saw some quarterbacks have cupcakes and they were able to pad some stats, right? When you look at week one, who was your quarterback of the week? Who had the best week out of the draft eligible quarterbacks, in week one?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Carson Beck. I think he made himself some money, and we talked about it, right? Just from the perspective of what will he look like having carried the load at Miami, because he won't be in a protected situation like Georgia is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you look at him playing Notre Dame, Notre Dame was ranked number 6 in the country, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were number 10. Notre Dame was number 6 in the country. You walk away with the win. You had a couple questionable throws, but you had some throws that were like, okay, Carson Beck can get in here and make some plays. And I'll say this, that his reactionary athleticism in the pocket looked better, right? Like he looked like instead of being a average to below average athlete, he looked like a decent to good athlete in the pocket, being able to maneuver things and stuff like that. And the arm talent, it's what we thought it was. It's not the strongest arm in the world, but it's good and it's sufficient enough. So I look at Carson Beck and I say this, that if you can trying to find a range, right? Would they play 12 games? You can go 10-2, right? With this schedule, fall somewhere in there. Could you possibly elevate yourself back to a first round quarterback? And what I'm saying is that DP, we remember Jackson Dart going in the first round in April. But there were moments, if you talk about, I think it was week 5 when they finally played a Power 5 opponent against Kentucky, where I think he had 1 touchdown, no interceptions. They lost the game 19-16, right? Then there were other moments against big-time games. Can Carson Beck squeeze into the back end of the first round like Jackson Dart did? And that should be the question.
Yeah, and Keith, I'm glad you brought Carson Beck up because of the simple fact, and I tweeted this out, I believe it was on yesterday morning when I was going through film and looking at the numbers and just a discrepancy of how differently Miami's game plan was. Carson Beck threw the ball 31 times while they ran the ball like 35 times, where Notre Dame had their first time starter throw the ball 30 plus times, and they only ran the ball with their running backs like 16 or 15 or something crazy like that. I'm like, no, Miami understood, like, hey, we get Mark Fletcher downhill, we get the play action pass going, we get some RPO stuff. And then, and I said this last year when I was watching James Pierce, I said, in that Georgia game, he should have had 3.5 sacks. But Carson Beck's functional movement in the pocket stopped him, as well as a couple offensive holding penalties that he did draw. But Carson Beck got out of a couple of those sacks because he was like, he felt the pressure, he evaded, he moved and got out of the pocket and either threw the ball away or tried to make a play with it. But that, one thing I think for his draft stock, for any team drafting him, what I take from game one is that freshman Malachi Toney, you need one of those. You need a route runner, a guy that can easily win and win those one-on-ones and be able to make the plays after the catch. Because if you have one of those guys, and Keith, my comp for Beck for 2 years now has been Jared Goff. Guess what Jared Goff has? Amon St. Brown, a timing, rhythm, route runner who can make plays after the catch and get open when he's supposed to. When he was in LA with Sean McVay, he had who? Cooper Kupp. All right. It's the stars align. I know a lot of people, I got a lot of flack for that because he was like, well, he don't have the arm talent that Jared Goff has. Well, he's got more mobility than Jared Goff. So it's an even trade if you ask me. But Keith, I'm glad you brought him up. Man, looking at the quarterback situation around college football, I would probably say, because he was definitely one I thought about too. I'm gonna go with Lenoir Sellers in South Carolina, and dual threat ability and what he brought to that game. Right, 12 carries, 12 rushing attempts, 55 rushing yards. You know, college football knocks quarterbacks for taking sacks and takes it from their rushing stats. I hate the ridiculous thing in the world, but he also was efficient as a thrower. 12 of 19, 209, 11 yards per, 1 touchdown. He took some sacks that you want to see him again. It's just
especially
big,
early on.
Yeah, man. It's that big. I'm 6'3", 240. It's that Superman kind of mentality for these young big quarterbacks. I watched Cam Newton do it. I've seen Josh Allen do it. Like, you see these guys do it, you think you can do it too. It's like, yeah, sometimes you can. Sometimes why don't you just throw the ball away? Live to play another down. But what he was able to do, then getting the long ball going later in that game to kind of stretch that lead out with him and Nick Harbor. Nick Harbor had a 2 drops. Well, he actually had a touchdown. It was like Darian Brown, the whole not surviving the ground. I'm not against it, guys. If you don't complete the task of the catch, it's incomplete. I don't care. Because you're not going to say that on the sideline at the 5-yard line. Well, you got 2 feet in at the 5, so no. If he fell out of bounds and dropped the ball, he dropped the ball. So I think Lenoir Sellers, he did some really good things. You saw some of that youth, Keith, that you wanted. He did protect the ball. No fumbles, no interceptions. So I was like, all right. And one thing we know, Vatek's defense is legit. They always have a good defense. Their defense was swarming at times in this game, but I never felt like he plummeted mentally. I felt like he stayed even keel. Like, all right, I took that sack. That's on me. My bad. I'll do better next time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, you can tell that in a weird way, it was that experience of I've been here before, right?
Yeah.
That even though he didn't make every perfect play, I don't think his process was necessarily sped up. I think he was intentional, like even with the bad sacks, it was just because that's what he wanted to do, right? It wasn't that so many things happen so fast that I don't even know how I get here for LaNorris Sellers. But I also think too that he did a decent job of controlling the game. And I think when we talked about this probably a couple months ago, that it's going to be up to him and the coaching staff to walk that fine line of him only being a running quarterback, but also learn how to dictate and control the game utilizing his legs, because he is such a good athlete. And I'll even go to this, and this may sound crazy, but I think he's a better athlete than Anthony Richardson. And what I mean is, I think his lateral cuts, he has more contact balance and lateral cuts when I watch him, because I know there's going to be a lot of comparison of the two. I think Anthony Richardson, I don't think he's going to test like Anthony Richardson, right? Like, that's
not straight line.
Yeah, not straight line, otherworldly. But just when it comes to the contact balance, lateral agility, things like that, I seen LaNorris appear to have more like body control and stop ability, operate in those confined spaces, things like that. So
he's that's not a crazy take though, Keith. Like, that's actually, because I agree with you. Like, the lateral ability, because he's listed at like 6'3", 240, and I think A-Rich was like 6'5", when he came to the combine. He was like 255.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so it was like he bigger dude, like more weight to him. I think he trimmed down this offseason, stuff like that. But taller, like Lenoir's runs with a different pad. He runs with a pad level of a running back, truthfully. Like he lowers that his hip. Like his hip level is low center of gravity. His shoulders are low. So where, like, if you do hit him as he's sprinting, I mean, he took that the run in the red zone where he trucked the I don't know if it was a safety or corner, but doesn't really matter. Like, he just kind of ran straight through him, walked in for the touchdown inside the high red and everything. I think it was like a 13-yard run or whatnot. So like, he runs with a different style than Anthony Richardson overall. And that's why what you just said makes a lot of sense. He's going to be able to cut better. He's going to be able to have that better center of gravity because like A-Rich was very high because he's 6'5". I mean, it's whatever. Like, you know what I mean? You are who you are.
Well, DP, let's do this, man. We talked about our quarterback of the week. Let's talk about rising performances, right? We're going to look at the college football landscape, tell you which quarterbacks are on the rise. Let's talk about that coming up next.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. With the season kicking off on September the 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with your friends? Try the Draft with Friends mode, which is new. But if you prefer the classics, get your crew together and go head-to-head in private leagues. But if you have no crew at all, that's no problem either. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September the 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Quarterbacks on the rise, Keith, and those rising performances that gave us something to hold on to in week one. Man, there's a lot of guys that again, a lot of teams, not saying that they were afraid, but didn't do what Texas and Ohio State did, Clemson, LSU did, South Carolina, Vatech, and they scheduled the normal,
It was funny, DP, because it was like we probably had 4 or 5 primetime matchups, and then the rest of them were warm-ups. Like we had like 5 really good ones, and then the rest of them were warm-ups.
Everything else was just like, let's get into a groove. Yeah. Let's find our rhythm before we start seeing some of the big dogs. But kids, I'm like, for me, man, and I didn't put them on my list because we'll unveil the top 10 in the final as we get ready to close the show. But for me, kid, I look at Darian Mensa over at Duke. I think they played like Elon and everything like that. And this was again, big time NIL situation for him, and a guy that a lot of people were excited to see. And I was looking forward to watching him. He was 27-34, 389 yards passing and 3 passing touchdowns. Didn't put the ball in harm's way and everything for Duke. And I said this, I'm gonna say it again. I think Duke is the team in the ACC that we fast forward to the end of the season, we're like, they're in the ACC championship game. And the thing is that they have a quarterback. They have a guy that can run with his legs when he needs to. He's more of a pocket passer, but he has the athleticism. If he needs to move, he can move and he can run, and you can run some of the design stuff with him, but he wants to throw from the pocket. And I think now having a guy that, we know good quarterback play can elevate in the NFL, can elevate the franchise. Good quarterback play in college football can elevate the program. And I think Darian Mensa is one of those rising performers where I think the NIL, the NFL is going to be like, we might want to see him do it again if he balls out this year. He might get he calls the NFL draft advisory board. What grade do you guys have for him? We got you at the top of the second. But if you go back, do it again, you're going to have a first-round grade next year. You know what I mean? That he goes back, gets that NIL money again from Duke, things of that nature. He may not come out at all. But, man, I'm excited for this Duke offense with him at the helm. This young man's talented, and he can play. And Duke hasn't had a quarterback in a very long time. Riley Leonard was more of a Tim Tebow archetype. This guy can actually throw.
The last one was probably Daniel Jones, right? Like that. He's probably the last one.
My statement remains, Keith. My statement remains.
The last one pertaining to the draft community.
The draft was Daniel Jones.
That's what pertains to the draft community. All right, I'm gonna go with this, man. And we've mentioned this guy quite a few times, DP. Oklahoma quarterback John Matiere. And yes, the Oklahoma Sooners were part of those programs that, did the warm-up situation. So he played Illinois State, I believe, went 30 or 37. That's 81% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. But then also added in another rushing touchdown. So that's a count for 4 touchdowns. Your first game with a new program, almost 400 yards passing. He picked up and looked like exactly what we projected him to look like at Oklahoma with some of these skill weapons around him. And that's exactly what we wanted to do, right? That's what we wanted to see from John Matiere, especially if it's an Illinois State, if it's a warm game for your team, kind of work through a couple things that, you haven't seen in practice because the bullet's alive now, right? And so I look at that and it just projects well for Oklahoma to finally have a decent offense. And then let's see what happens after that, right? Like have good quarterback play and then go from there.
Yeah, Brent Venables needed that. He needed that quarterback play. Crazy enough, the quarterback he let go, Jackson Arnold, he had a rising performance as well, against Baylor. Didn't throw the ball as much, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know he was that athletic. To just take the ball and just tuck it and run the way he did against Baylor. But he was out there just, I don't care. I'm doing whatever. He pulled the Haynes King. He was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win this game. If that means I run for 200, I run for 200. But he was another guy who had a good just overall performance and really put his offense on his back. But yeah, Oklahoma needed that. They needed a John Matiere to come out and not even a new offense, because I think his offensive coordinator followed him. They went together as a package deal to Oklahoma. So the offense, I think, for him is either the QB coach who's now the offensive coordinator, or it was the offensive coordinator came with him from Washington State. Either way, the offense is pretty much almost what he ran at Washington State in a sense, in terms of concepts and stuff like that. Where you look at some of the other guys like Fernando Mendoza and other guys who transfers, I got to get used to this situation, right? John Matiere kind of walked in and was like, this fits me like a glove because I've worn this before. He knows what was asked of him, and he looks good. Him and Deion Burks and that connection and his rushing ability, I think I comped him to a more athletic Baker Mayfield. I got to see the arm. I think, Keith, the reason why, I'm not going to say I think, I know the reason why they scheduled that cupcake. Because this Saturday, they host Michigan. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Things get real soon.
Yeah, it gets real interesting over there at Oklahoma. Keith, they knew, all right, Michigan's coming in, especially after what we saw from Bryce Underwood. I'm sorry, Bryce Underwood, the freshman quarterback, that rushing attack with Haynes in the backfield. This is not going to be an easy out. You know what I mean? Even with the front now, you gotta hope that the freshman has that college football video game moment where the crowd's so loud, the meter's shaking that he can't see the receiver icons and crap. You gotta hope that happens. But you want John Matiere to come out there and play at a high enough level to where he gets that. I think for him, you want to get the jitters out. First game as a transfer, get it out your system. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and get you loose, get you free flowing, get you playing well. And now you go into this game understanding man, we walk out of our house with a dub against Michigan. He plays well. That draft stock, man, it's a rocket. It's going to be attached to his back if he goes out there and balls out against Michigan, Keith. If he handles business against Michigan, people are going to be like, listen, this might be a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see this, right? This is the matchups that we want to see. And it's kind of somewhat of, we talked about this young man. Now it's time to go see him do it against a high profile team, right? And like you said, win or lose, just play well. And I always say this, I don't need you to throw for 4 touchdowns and 400 yards. Give me 250 and 2 touchdowns and look efficient with the football. And I'm fine with that. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. And we're about to talk about the stock droppers, right? Which guys lost themselves some money, which guys' stock kind of went down for our top 10 quarterbacks of the week. Let's talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. I said bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to freely use across the app. Again, right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the app. And you can use it on everything. However you like to bet, you can use that extra cash on. From player props, building the same game parlay, or even jumping in to the live action as it unfolds. So my question is, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Again, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to Get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Hey, Locked On NFL Draft fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed anyway. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Those stock dropping performances, Keith, and I was in the building for Cade Klubnik's performance against LSU, and like throughout the majority of that game, up until the interception, he had been playing well, using his legs. I think he broke a couple guys' ankles out there, stuff like that. He started very high in terms of, I was looking at him and I was like, yeah, he's a little amped. Like, you got to calm down. Like, you got to calm down that first drive or two. And then they started to get him on the move, and he started moving the launch point. He's hitting his reads. He's using his legs. The problem was, and it'll go like in, I've tweeted about it with Nuss. LSU came in with a game plan. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at Garrett Riley like, all right, your court, like per the numbers, Cade Klubnik was under pressure 42% of his dropbacks. Wow. He was constantly under pressure. And instead of going to some of the stuff, it's a copycat league at the end of the day. I'm watching film and Nuss is sitting there like, okay, we're playing off. I'm going to just throw this wide receiver screen. We're getting 15. It was just that all game. Run game, screens, tunnel screens to Aaron Anderson, RPO stuff, quick stuff. Like, I think 16 of his 28 completions came behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah, and crazy. You're telling me you don't give that to Cade to do the same thing? Like, to take some of the sting out of that pass rush? They were getting back there. And it's just like, it just kind of, what it looked like to me, Keith, the second half of Cade looked like that Georgia game of Cade, where it was like, yeah, you want to see better. And it's just like everybody has to take blame. The offensive line didn't play well. Garrett Riley, and I've been calling for his job for like 2 years now. Like, he's not a great OC. He doesn't adjust. They couldn't run the ball. I think Cade was their leading rusher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a rough night. It was a rough night at home. You're in the anticipation. I think, because I remember when Anthony Richardson came out, I talked to Osiris Torrance when we was at Senior Bowl. And he said, man, people don't know there's more pressure playing at home than there is on the road. He said, when you're on the road, you're hated. You're the villain. You embrace that. When you're at home, you're the hero. And everybody in the stands are expecting you to perform well. If you don't, you're going to hit the boos and everything else. It's different hearing boos from your fans than hearing boos from the opposing crowd. And I think that played a big part in everything Saturday night. They were just a little bit too wound tight overall as a team. So Cade dropped. I'll drop the rankings in a little bit. He definitely dropped a little bit for me. I didn't overreact though. I didn't overreact like I said. I'm not going to do all that.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing, DP. I had him drop a couple slots for me. And it's mostly of what you outlined and watching the game. And if you watch the game back, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's like, I feel like at this point in your career, year 3, you should have the answer for if it goes wrong. And Cade doesn't appear to have it flashes at moments, right? Like, okay, cool, this is what I'm going to do. You know how we talk about with quarterbacks, like the instincts to make the wrong right? Like to be able to be aware quickly, like, oh, this is not going good. Like and that's what I just want to see from him, because you know the potential. And we always say this, like when it's on, everything is going good. Like, oh man, it's a top 10 pick, right? But when everything goes bad, how are you like, and it's to the point to where can you, and maybe this is asking a lot, right? But we see certain situations with quarterbacks when it be like, they basically telling the offensive coordinator, like, hey, I'm not running that. I'm doing me. don't worry about it. Like
Yeah.
whatever you telling me in my head's piece, I'm not even going with that. This my show.
Yeah.
Like I'm good. And I want him to get to that level of confidence where like, wait, what you call? Nah, don't worry about that. I gotta play. Say hut, right? That's what I want him to do.
Yeah, it's not happening at Clemson. Dabo Swinney ain't putting up with that. I'm telling you right now, he runs that job like a tight ship. But I'm with you on that. And like you said, the flash is in like I think the second quarter, the second and third drive, you start seeing him use his legs and having an answer for the pressure. Then whoever the DC is for Clemson said, okay, we got to answer for that.
LSU,
and they started sending pressure. I mean, for LSU, they sent pressure from the nickel spot to counter him getting off because he was getting around the edge of the defense, and then he was using his legs, and he basically became basically his own RPO. Like I could throw it or I could just run it, and then they started sending that pressure and getting whether it was there was a couple times Harold Perkins Jr. from the linebacker spot, him and Weeks looping around from the linebacker spot in the middle of the field to the perimeter and shutting it off and not letting him get outside. So it's like that's why I was like, yeah, Garrett, you gotta help your guy out. Like if the old line is struggling, you gotta help everybody out. You can't run the ball. The old line is struggling. Receivers losing their balance out there catching passes. Like this is not looking good for anybody. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to see him. I think and it's sad, Keith, because I don't know if we're going to see the growth we need to see, like from just like taking control in a controlled situation where the players don't have as much of a voice in the sense, like not saying that they can't speak, but it's like Dabo runs it how Dabo runs it. And it's like, hey, call us, you can make the check, but you know how Kyler did with Cliff, like, look at the sideline. I'm not running that. I'm good. Don't worry about it. It just was like, I see what's going on. I can call the play and I'll get us into something good. Like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like they'll let him make checks, but they're not gonna give him too much freedom, Keith. I'll go to another guy that kind of and it was just again first day out. It was for me was Fernando Mendoza. Just a little bit. I didn't actually drop him in my rankings because I gave him a mulligan. That's all right. First game in Indiana. There's a lot of stuff changing for you. New offense, new teammates. Heck, you're going from the West Coast to the East Coast, baby. You playing earlier games now. You know what I mean? Like you got to sleep in on the West Coast now. You playing 12 noon Eastern. Like what's that, 9 o'clock on the West Coast or whatever? Yep. Like, yeah, you gotta get adjusted, big dog. So like I think that was a big thing for him. Him and the offense kind of looked sluggish coming out, against Old Dominion and everything. You want to see them kind of hit their stride the next couple games. But yeah, he's got to play better. I like to see Cade play better. And things like that. And I would say Sawyer Robertson, he's on my list, and I'll debut it now. Like my top 10, Keith, and I'll get to yours. I got Sawyer Robertson at 10, John Matiere at Oklahoma at 9, Taylor Green from Arkansas at 8, Sam Levitt from Arizona State at 7, Carson Beck from Miami at 6, Cade Klubnik dropped from 3 to 5, Drew Allers at 4 from Penn State, LaNorris Sellers moved up from 5 to 3 for South Carolina, Garrett Nussmeier still at 2 for me from LSU. I keep Fernando there. I took Arch off. That was the one I took off. I was like, all right, I gave you the respect as the last name. Now I gotta just wait I'm gonna just wait and see. I'm waiting for him to give me that big performance, like really hit the ground running, find himself in this offense as a first-year starter. I was like, the media, like, because what was it? Dan Orlovsky tweeted out, you got a generational quarterback. How do you have the training wheels on? I'm like, this is why these young players feel pressure. Calling this kid generational, like, and he started 3 games is unreal. So that's my top 10. I'll give you guys Keith's top 10. Keith has at number 10, Nico Iamaleava from UCLA. At number 9, Dante Moore from Oregon. I think we talked about him on yesterday's show. Yep. At number 8, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. Number 7, John Matiere from Oklahoma. Number 6, Drew Allen from Penn State. Cade Klubnik comes in at number 5 for him. Carson Beck moved up to number 4. Lenoir Sellers moved up to number 3. Arch Manning moved down to number 2 from Texas, and Garrett Nussmeier moved up to number 1. Keith, why for you? Why did you move Arch just one spot? Like, why wasn't it more than one for you?
Yeah, because I was so what we talked about. First of all, is some of these quarterbacks had great games against
bad competition.
Against not great teams, right? And then some of these quarterbacks had not good games against good teams. So there really, if you look at it, right, there wasn't a case to be had well, I'm not gonna say that wasn't the case, but you can make the case the other way, is that who really had impactful performances, right? That's worth
Yeah,
elevating so far high or moving so far down low. So this list I probably kept similar to what my first list,
yeah,
because I was like, when you really look at the quarterbacks and how they played, none of those guys really separated themselves or had big time games in big time
yeah,
situations. To me, the most impressive performance was Nussmeier going into Clemson and playing a decent, solid game,
yeah.
minimizing turnovers, just seeing, those things that we wanted to see, probably playing a
Mhm.
top 5 defense in all of college football
Right.
with pretty much all new weapons, right? As far as who's aligning there and like, being the top dog. So Nussmeier was probably the only one to me that had like a real impactful performance overall this past weekend. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all gonna talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Guys, coming up on tomorrow's show, on tomorrow's episode, we're going to take a look at a few players from week 1. It's Watch the Tape Wednesday. And Keith, we got to look at Ruben Bain, the defensive lineman, edge rusher from Miami, and maybe get into a quarterback. You know what? Let's talk Arch. Let's get into Arch's tape, see what we saw from it, how much was on him, how much was on Sark, how much was on Matt Patricia, the DC for the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll get into Arch Manning and Ruben Bain's tape and one more other play on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.